Now, Theresa May's beleaguered Brexit plan is facing yet more opposition from within her own ranks, this time from Scottish Conservatives, who've rejected any moves to delay Britain's departure from the common fisheries policy. The Scottish Secretary, David Mundell, said the policy had been bad for Scotland and bad for the UK and had influenced many people to vote leave. Well, joining us now is the Conservative MP David Duguid, whose Banff-and-Buchan constituency is home to a substantial fishing industry. Welcome onto the programme. If there is an extended transition period which prevents you taking back control of those waters until 2021 or even beyond, would you vote against the deal in the Commons?
I would very much hope it doesn't come to that, because, as I understand
it... If it does, though?
Right now, what we're expecting is to be sitting at the negotiating table as an independent coastal state in December, in the middle of December 2020.
And if that promise is taken away?
That's actually before the current implementation period plan is due to end. So if there is an extension, I would hope that very much that would still be the case. We'd still be an independent coastal state in December 2020.
But, I mean, that would be cherry-picking. The EU is absolutely allergic to cherry-picking.
But the EU themselves has tried to cherry-pick themselves. In the past, they've kind of mellowed on this position, but their initial position was that they would not allow any discussion on fishing at all unless they could have guaranteed access. So they were cherry-picking fishing as an industry anyway.
But if that promise is taken away from you, just to repeat the question, would you vote against the deal in the Commons, along with the 12 other Conservatives?
I would certainly, as I've said before, I've said in the Chamber, I've said publicly, I've been in the press as stating, I could not vote for any withdrawal agreement or fisheries bill that does not advance the interests of the Scottish fishermen.
And your 12 Scottish Conservative colleagues feel the same?
As far as I know, in fact, I know for sure, we are all of one voice on that.
So if Theresa May loses the support of the 13 of you, 13 whose votes she depends on, I mean, it's curtains for her, isn't it?
Well, like I said, I very much hope it doesn't come to that. And because we're talking with that one voice, and we're talking with that voice quite loudly...
you think she's listening?
I know she's listening.
How do you know that?
I was talking to the Prime Minister just last week on this very subject. Well, not so much on the extension, because we didn't know about it then, but talking about the interests of the Scottish fishermen. One other red line for us is that any access to EU vessels must not be tied to any trade agreement, for example. And
so what did she promise to you?
She's provided assurance time and time again, as has Michael Gove, the DEFRA Secretary, that this government's position is very much not to cross that red line.
Do you believe that promise, then? Because you've been promised before and it hasn't materialised.
Well, let me put it this way. I believe the promise, I trust the promise, but I'm not going to let up on holding the government to account on that either. If
you're still in the common fisheries policy by the time of the 2021 elections to the Scottish Parliament, could you look a fisherman in the eye and say, vote Conservative? Technically, we will be out of the common fisheries policy because we'll be out of the EU. The implementation period causes a complication because, as we understand it, the implementation period is due to end in December 2020. Now, I had to work with the fishing industry, fishing communities in my constituency to get them to swallow that, but that was based on the final deal of being an independent coastal state, having full sovereignty, having full control over who fishes in our waters, for what, when, and under which rules. But if you're still in the common fisheries policy, can you tell a fisherman to vote Conservative?
We won't be in the common fisheries policy.
If you are?
We won't be.
I think I've got my answer. David Duguid, thanks very much for joining us.